As we age, is it normal for our blood pressure to go up, or should everyone be 120 over 80? I'm going to give you an alternative view. The answer is yes, our blood pressure should go up, but the interesting part about this is why and how we should approach it. First, let's talk about blood pressure and why our blood pressure should go up as we age. First of all, it's normal to age. As we age, our skin changes, our vision changes, our hair changes. You wouldn't say that, oh, it's not normal for your skin to change. We should have the same skin at 10 years old, 20 years old, and 90 years old. No one's going to believe that. The same thing with your hair. You're not going to have the same quality of hair at 90 that you are at 20. So why is it that the guidelines are that we should have the same blood pressure no matter what our age? If you believe that, then you're going to be very stressed and probably on a lot of medications. But let me give you an argument as to why, as we age, our blood pressure should change. And in order to understand this, let me go back and explain why the blood pressure does change. Because our arteries get old. So think of our arteries. You have your heart, and off the heart, the major artery that comes off the heart is our aorta. And the aorta is, think of it as a big pipe, but don't think of it as a steel pipe. Think of it as a very brand new, soft garden hose that when the water goes through, it can expand. It's pliable, it's flexible, especially when you're young. Now, as this hose goes through our body, it starts dividing. You have to imagine that this garden hose then splits and goes off to two different garden hoses as it goes down our legs, for example. And then it starts branching and branching and branching until there's many little garden hoses. As it circulates and goes back up to the heart, all those little hoses, just like streams that go into a river, they come together and form bigger hoses, and they eventually get back to the heart. Now, in those small blood vessels, as time goes on, as we age through our life, those blood vessels simply get old. If there's restriction and less pliability of those small blood vessels, then upstream, there's going to be more pressure pushing down into them. Just like in a garden hose, you'd put your thumb on the end of the garden hose and there would be an increased pressure. That is considered normal. That's normal physiology. Of course, I'm using an analogy, but instead of a garden hose, you have blood vessels, and instead of water, you have blood. The concern that many doctors have, and I'll put some links down below to show you that I'm not the only doctor that has a concern for this, and I'll explain why this is a big concern at the end of the video, so hang tight with me. But I'll put links down below to other doctors that are very reputable that believe the same thing, that if we treat aggressively blood pressure at 20, that's different than treating blood pressure aggressively at 60, 70, or 80. Because there's going to be problems. Now, normally the systolic number, the first number of your blood pressure, will go up as you age. The systolic number is also very susceptible to stress. It's also very susceptible to our lifestyle very quickly. So in other words, you could change your stress levels, you could change your lifestyle, and very, very quickly, you can alter the systolic number. So many people find that relaxing, deep breathing exercises can help. In addition to that, alterations of your diet can make a difference in the systolic number very, very quickly. It's not uncommon for someone to start a carnivore diet or a keto diet or a vegan diet or a vegetarian diet or a Mediterranean diet. Whatever the diet is, when people initially start, they will see drastic changes in their systolic numbers. And the reason why is not because they're stopping aging from happening of those small blood vessels, but rather they're becoming a lot healthier. And it's that improved health that is lowering the systolic number drastically. All the diets that I just mentioned actually have one similarity, and that is that they omit a lot of the bad foods that are in our normal standard diets. Now, what's interesting is that the diastolic number, the second number of your blood pressure, the lower number, actually will go up as well as we age. But typically, the diastolic number will go up until you're about 50 to 60 years old. After about 60 years old, the diastolic number typically, because of aging, does not go up any further, or it might even go down a bit. Diastole, or the diastolic number, is that period of our heartbeat when the coronary arteries are filled up. In addition to that, the high diastolic number is necessary for blood to get to our brain. You'll see why in just a minute why this is extremely important. But in summary, for right now, as we age, our systolic number will go up and our diastolic number will go up. But as we get to 50, 60 years old, our systolic number can go up and our diastolic number may stabilize or go down, which means the pulse pressure can increase. There's a lot of talk about pulse pressure, which is the difference in number between the systolic number and the diastolic number. It's believed that a lower pulse pressure is better, but that's only one number, and you really shouldn't focus on that, because if your blood pressure is 150 over 90, there's therefore a pulse pressure of 60. But that doesn't mean anything because it's relative to the numbers themselves. For example, a blood pressure of 200 over 180 would have only a 20 pulse pressure, which makes it sound better, but the numbers themselves are way higher. Now, the reason this is a concern with the pulse pressure as well as the numbers themselves is because the elderly will start to have a higher systolic number and their diastolic number may stabilize or go down, leading to a higher pulse pressure and a high systolic. Well, if you treat these people aggressively for their blood pressure, very often you're not only lowering the systolic number, but you're also lowering the diastolic number. And as I mentioned, it's the diastole, or the second number, the diastolic number, that represents the time when the blood is trying to get to the brain and get to the coronary arteries. Well, if you treat these people too aggressively to lower the numbers down, then what happens is, in order to get that systolic number down to 120, which is the preferred number that people want you to get to, then your diastolic number goes way down, literally out of the picture. And because it's so low, you get certain side effects or symptoms such as dizziness, fainting, falling, and lastly, an extreme amount of fatigue. What happens in this case is you take someone who may not look good on paper because their blood pressure is not considered normal, which is 120 over 80 or below that. And by treating them, now you've given them dizziness, feeling faint, falling down, extreme fatigue. These times when people are older, they're very susceptible to falls. And if they have any other conditions like osteoporosis, they can break a hip, they can get injured. Falls are a big problem in the elderly. And it's possible that the blood pressure medication, because you're trying to treat it aggressively and trying to get the numbers down to what, a 10-year-old would be or a 15-year-old, it creates problems. Now, first of all, I want to thank you for lasting this long in the video, because now I'm going to give you the real side of the story that's important. The systolic number is the one where, as we get older, it gets high. That can be altered with lifestyle, changing your diet, exercising, deep breathing exercises. There are a whole host of things that you could do to alter your systolic numbers. Now, typically, when I show patients or I show people on YouTube how to do deep breathing exercises, it's the systolic number that drops the most. The reason why is the diastolic. If you're going to drop that, that's going to take long-term lifestyle changes. But if your goal is to reduce the pulse pressure by reducing the systolic, that can be changed very quickly with lifestyle changes. If you want to know how to do this, there are a whole list of things. So at the end of the video, I'll put right here on the right side a box. Now just hang tight for it, and it'll be my natural solutions to lowering blood pressure. These are all free. I'm not trying to sell you anything. These are things that you can do yourself at home to naturally lower your blood pressure. And I would encourage you to talk to your doctor about altering your lifestyle to see if you can get your blood pressure to a normal level for your age. And when you do that, you can avoid a lot of the side effects that occur from aggressively treating blood pressure. Now, if you're not willing to make these changes, then you're left with the last resort, which is your doctor giving you multiple blood pressure medications, and you'll just have to deal with the side effects.